The AirPods Max have seen a pretty storied history. When they launched at $550 in 2020, they were literally the most expensive Bluetooth headphones that money could buy. But in my review, I concluded that they were genuinely great performers and stood as proof that over-ear wireless headphones could go toe-to-toe with seriously good wired cans. That is, if you could shell out the shekels. But then these headphones sat without a meaningful update for 4 years while the market quietly started to pass them by. In 2024, Apple released what they called an update that swapped Lightning for USB-C, and I guess they added a few new colors, but that was it. It used the same, but now last-gen H1 chip, the same drivers, it had the same weight, same battery life, same case, just a more universal, yet seemingly less capable port. Yeah. So the original AirPods Max, they had this goofy but technically impressive $35 cable that took an analog signal from your source, a headphone jack, used an ADC to convert that analog signal to digital so that it could be processed by the headphone's DSP, and then reconverted it to analog in the amplification stage. The 2024 USB-C model, it launched without any wired input capabilities whatsoever, Bluetooth only. Yikes. So 6 months later, Apple decided to correct this with a new $40 cable containing both an analog to digital converter and digital to analog converter for bidirectional use across multiple headphones. Crazy town. And well, I guess that brings us to today, where the AirPods Max 2 now stand as the first real upgrade in 5 years. But is it deserving of the 2 moniker, or is this just a version 1.5? Because on the one hand, well, we have the H2 chip that replaces the insanely dated H1, bringing a much more capable DSP and even more amplification stages for what Apple claims is improved sound. There's Bluetooth 5.3 for improved range and lower latency and a suite of software features. But on the other hand, the only real improvements that come to these headphones are as a consequence of the silicon. The headphones themselves, chip aside, pretty much remain unchanged. It's still using the same chassis, the same drivers, the same microphones, the same battery, the same digital crown, blah, blah, blah. Actually, that's not true. The new digital crown is scratchier than the old one. And not just on my unit, I noticed this on Apple Store retail units as well. They didn't even bother to change the colors. And those software improvements are everything that the H2-based AirPods Pro already have. Adaptive audio, conversation awareness, voice isolation, live translation, personalized volume, adaptive EQ, head gestures. We've already got them all elsewhere. But importantly, it does bring to the AirPods Max 2 better audio quality and ANC capabilities. Let's talk sound quality first, because that's what matters most. The improvement is slightly noticeable in some tracks, but only some. Most of the time, you genuinely will not be able to tell the difference between the old AirPods Max and the new ones. Mids bring the most meaningful improvement, with better vocal separation and instrument timbre. Like guitars in particular sound more detailed on a handful of tracks, but I really cannot emphasize enough how subtle this is. It's like maybe a 10% change. If I wasn't A/B'ing them side to side, I would not notice or care. They're basically the same headphones sonically. More comparisons will come later. What isn't the same as its predecessor is, well, the Omni S2 robot vacuum and mop from today's sponsor, Eufy. And that's saying a lot, because the first generation S1 stayed in my house for longer than any other bot. And it's the one that I entrusted to keep my mother-in-law's house clean too. Look, robot vacuums, they've got a dirty secret. That huge Pascal suction rating they always brag about, it disappears in weeks as dust clogs the filter and airflow tanks. But not the S2. It fixes this with Aero Turbo 2.0, the first robot vacuum with a multi-cone cyclone that uses centrifugal force to spin debris towards the dustbin walls, allowing only clean air to reach the filter. And the end result is 100 air watts of flow, which is enough to rival handheld vacuums, and 100 air watts that doesn't degrade over time. The filter stays unclogged for up to a year, which means suction stays where it should. But this is what actually sold me. The S2 doesn't just mop floors, it sanitizes them. An onboard electrolyzer with a ruthenium iridium coating turns your tap water into hypochlorous acid, the same stuff that hospitals use for disinfection, killing 99.99% of pathogens without any harsh chemicals. Just water. Fancy water. There is still a surfactant-based solution too for handling those nastier spills, and when it roams around, it can even use a built-in fragrance dispenser to make sure that your place doesn't just look clean but smells the part too. It climbs 2-inch thick carpets, it avoids tassels, handles edges and corners with an extending brush and mop, and as with its predecessor, has obstacle detection that is truly second to none. Check out the Eufy Omni S2 at the link below. While the sonic performance of the AirPods Max 2 are not that much different than their predecessors, the same cannot be said of ANC, active noise cancellation, which is a massive leap over the original. Consistent noises like planes, HVAC blower fans, and other droning sounds, the kitchen sink, they're essentially unnoticeable, even with nothing playing, which is no small feat. And even intermittent noises like people talking in traffic, the stuff that's really hard to noise cancel, basically disappears at anything above 50% volume. It's genuinely impressive and puts the AirPods Max 2 at the tippy top amongst other market leaders for ANC performance. Having said that, noise cancellation on the Max is a lot less comfortable for me than on something like the AirPods Pro. There's this false vacuum sensation that gives me an uncomfortable inner ear pressure feeling, since the headphones have to cancel out substantially more physical volume. And well, the AirPods Max, they just offer very little in the way of passive isolation. It turns out jamming your ear canal full of foam and silicone does a lot more of the heavy lifting before the AirPods Pro's ANC even kicks in, something that over-ears simply can't replicate. But even on other over-ears, the pressure sensation is not as bad as the AirPods Max 2. It's pretty intense. It's not really enough to bother me because I'm not that perceptible to it, and it certainly doesn't bug me at all when music is playing. But when ANC is on with nothing going, which I do sometimes, it is always noticeable. Whereas on vented AirPods Pro 2 and 3, I don't have this issue at all. Additionally, because of the earpad design, everybody around you will hear what you're listening to. They leak quite a bit. Are you going to bother someone next to you on a plane? No, probably not. But in an office? Yeah, probably. Now, here's the thing. None of these improvements that I just described address any of the problems that I had with the original AirPods Max. The originals sounded fine. They were good enough for what they aimed to be. And frankly, if you were focused on fidelity, wireless headphones were never a serious consideration anyway. What was wrong with the original AirPods Max was everything else. And the AirPods Max 2 have fixed precisely none of those things. The battery life remains mediocre at 20 hours, the worst of any headphone that I will mention in this video. And the awfully heavy aluminum design still develops condensate on the inside of the cups if you're using them to work out, which eventually kills the headphones entirely. It is a legitimately huge problem for a lot of people in fitness. Speaking of fitness, there are still no health sensors, like in the AirPods Pro 3. The mesh headband is mostly unchanged, and it still isn't strong enough to prevent the metal bars from sitting directly on top of your head, which makes the headphones even more uncomfortable. And it only gets worse over time as the mesh stretches out. You can see that my AirPods, my original Max, have really gone through it. The pads, they clamp pretty hard, which I know makes them compelling for fitness because they don't fall off. I'm bald. I mean, I do see people using them at the gym all the time, but that clamping force reduces comfort significantly when you're not being active. They're there all the time. Ow, that kind of hurts. There's still no power button, which is only a problem because of the garbage case situation where Apple claims they now hibernate outside of the case if you're not touching them. But my own standby testing proves that they don't, at least not reliably. I didn't use them for just 3 days, left them at 80% battery life. I came back and they were dead on my desk over the weekend. The exact same problem I had with the first generation Max, not fixed. And what is this case? Come on. I should also mention that this is my 6th pair of AirPods Max. Apple replaced them twice for batteries that would no longer charge, once for a microphone failure on the right ear cup, and twice for straight up refusing to stay connected to iCloud devices. They are literally the most unreliable Apple product that I have ever owned, and I don't think I'm alone on this because 2 of those 4 replacements happened without Apple Care coverage. It's almost like they've got a standing policy to just replace AirPods Max when they come in, because Apple knows they're all going to break at some point, and they don't want a recall. Look, as a headphone guy, I can point to literal dozens of things that other headphone designers figured out 40 years ago that Apple still apparently hasn't, from total weight to yoke articulation, clamping force, hinge geometry, pad depth, material selection, long-term comfort, serviceability, even something as basic as a proper mother friggin' power button. The design is compromised in ways that are hard to defend. Oh, that's my 7th replacement. Just kidding. The design is compromised in ways that are hard to defend from an engineering standpoint, and yet it's undeniable that the AirPods Max are a status symbol, iconic in their own way. People buy fakes of these things because they want to look like they own AirPods Max, which tells you something important about what this product actually is. For a lot of buyers, the AirPods Max, they're not a headphone purchase, they're an AirPods purchase. That distinction matters more than you think, especially when it comes to the competition. But first, you gotta listen to Daddy rant. One of Apple's big marketing points this generation is wired lossless. And this is where the AirPods Max 2 do offer a genuine technical distinction over their predecessor. For the first time, the AirPods Max 2 accept a true digital signal via USB-C with no analog to digital conversion step, just a straight digital pass-through from your device to the H2's DAC using a regular USB-C cable, meaning no more fancy $40 cable. Any USB-C cable will do. But does it actually matter? Honestly, not really. These headphones are just not good enough for you to notice much of a difference most of the time. You do get slightly better separation when wired, particularly in super dense mixes and female vocals. One track where I really did notice a pretty massive difference in separation and soundstage was Crush Forever by Metric. But on the other hand, if you're listening to pretty much any pop, dance, hip-hop track like Stay at Home DJ by Alan Palomo, where there's enough fattened up bass and sub-bass, the difference becomes a lot more subtle. And then, unfortunately, on some tracks, particularly with jazz and experimental jazz like Chimera by Snarky Puppy, well, the headphones just fall flat completely regardless of whether or not you're wired, lossless, or Bluetooth, proving that drivers and amplification, the headphone, matters a lot more than bitrate. And by the way, that's true of most Bluetooth headphones. Yes, I can detect the difference between LDAC and standard 320 kilobits per second AAC on even the most inexpensive Sony XM5s in many songs, but not on all. And I would take the sound quality of my wired $5,000 Odyssey Carbon streaming Spotify's absolutely balls quality 96 kilobits per second AAC over the AirPods Max with high resolution lossless any day of the week. Bitrate is just ultimately not that important. It's way down the list. And controlled trials have proved time and time again that all but the most trained ears are unable to reliably detect between lossy and lossless, especially with non-reference grade equipment like the AirPods Max. I suspect the majority of reviewers saying that there's a huge difference, and they're out there, are experiencing placebo and/or have not adjusted for gain because wired mode is louder by default on the AirPods Max 2, and studies have proved over 100 years to the moon and back that our dumb monkey brains almost always think louder means better. This is also why I don't particularly care that the AirPods Max lack Bluetooth lossless support. They're simply not resolving enough detail, wired or wireless, for it to matter 90% of the time. And Apple's AAC codec, by the way, I think it strikes the perfect compromise between fidelity, range, and latency for headphones at this performance tier. In short, stop saying, "But my lossless," about these or any other wireless headphones. You're not getting a line-out signal from John Lennon's butthole, so shut up. And that raises an uncomfortable question. In a world where the wireless hi-fi market has exploded since the original AirPods Max, do any of these small improvements even matter? Are the AirPods Max 2 competing with other high-end Bluetooth headphones? Because there are now several options north of their price point. There's the $800 Bowers and Wilkins PX7 S3s, the $1,000 Mark Levinson 5909s, the $1,500 Focal Bathys MGs, and I will stop leading you on. The answer is no. But those are also much more expensive. Surely they'll at least hold their own very well amongst other headphones the same price, right? Well, don't call me Shirley. And before we get into specifics, a small note. I don't have my own frequency response charts for the AirPods Max 2 because that's never been a thing on my channel. If you want those, you're not watching me. But I'm also not going to show anybody else's charts either. Like the AirPods Pro, the AirPods Max use real-time digital signal processing that makes it nearly impossible to provide a squiggle that means anything at all, much less one that indicates how they will actually sound to your particular ear. So instead, you get my ears, which have a couple decades and many thousands of dollars of experience behind them, and they're starting to get kind of old at age 32. So take that for what it's worth. I personally still think that the standard Focal Bathys are the best sounding Bluetooth headphones anywhere near this price. I mean, they could be dependably found for around $600. Unfortunately, despite having resin cups, magnesium yokes, and lambskin leather, they do feel substantially cheaper than the AirPods Max. But then you put them on and you forget about all that because the Focals offer a much better balanced tonality with way better mid-range presence and treble performance, where the AirPods Max 2 still struggle, just like the original did. Soundstage and instrument separation and dynamic punch are all noticeably better on the Bathys. You hear transients resolve faster, the bass is tighter without that slight bloom that the AirPods Max continue to carry around 1 kilohertz. And the treble is more evenly distributed instead of that recessed upper mid to spiky ear region thing that Apple has not fixed from the originals. But Focal's ANC is genuinely bad. Transparency sounds like you're on a phone call, and the buttons are intuitive as hell. So there's these. The B&W PX7 S3, what a great model name. These are $70 less than the AirPods Max while managing to not just sound better, but also feel vastly more comfortable with nearly as excellent build quality. These are really nice. The 7S3's sub bass goes meaningfully deeper with more slam and impact, whereas the AirPods Max kind of hang out in a mid-bass emphasis that doesn't extend as far down. Still nice, but not quite as good. Transients are far tighter on the Bowers, giving vocals and strings much more texture and crispness, and they're significantly more comfortable to wear with better battery life and, frankly, pretty solid ANC. I honestly don't know if there's a more well-rounded headphone dollar per dollar on the market than these, and I feel that they are criminally underrated. These headphones are wonderful. The same cannot be said of the Bose QC Ultra, which has class-leading ANC and are crazy comfortable, but have absolutely terrible sound quality. Everybody at Bose should be ashamed. Well, no, they work at Bose, so they are ashamed. Then there's the Sennheiser HD630, which I admit I don't own, but I have used. Headphones that sound incredible for the money, but are so uncomfortable to wear that I want to fly to Germany and slap whoever designed them, except for, no, I don't, because slapping the soon-to-be unemployed is awful. And hopefully this medical company sells Sennheiser to literally anybody other than Samsung, who already owns everything. And who could forget the Sonys? The XM5 and the XM6 are the default recommendation by most, and for good reason. They sound good, they have best-in-class ANC, excellent transparency, great comfort, and absolutely rubbish build quality. I mean, just look at Benjamin's 2-year-old XM5s that have mostly stayed here in the office. It's easy to ignore the small shortcomings though, particularly when you see the price of the XM5 and the deep discounts that the XM6 often see. So, the AirPods Max 2. They're not the best in anything, they're just pretty okay at everything. But here's what's interesting. Despite owning headphones that sound better in every way, like the Bathys, or headphones that are lighter and more comfortable, like the PX7s, I still find myself reaching for the AirPods Max when they're nearby. Because the auto pairing, the seamless switching between my Mac and my phone, heck, even my TV with spatial audio to boot, is genuinely compelling. And I think that tells you pretty much everything about what this product actually is. Nobody buying AirPods Max is cross-shopping the PX7 S3s or agonizing over frequency response charts. They are buying the over-ear AirPods. And if that's what you want, well then the Max 2 are literally your only option and nothing else even matters. But if the entire selling point is AirPods, but over your ears, then you have to reckon with the fact that wanting over-ear headphones in 2026 has become a bit like wanting a tower PC. Sure, there are instances where over-ear cans are absolutely the move. But the AirPods Pro 2 and 3 are without a doubt the best products that Apple has made since the launch of the iPhone. They do literally everything right. They sound fantastic. They're insanely reliable. Bluetooth range is excellent. They're affordable, often going on sale for less than $200. And they've got great battery life, great call quality, a compact case that charges via USB-C or MagSafe or an Apple Watch charger, and they're comfortable. Heck, I've put mine through the washer like 4 times and they still work, whereas if you get a little bit of sweat on here, they're like, oh, please take me to the Apple store. The AirPods Pro are everything in-ear headphones couldn't be for such a long time, but now are. Just like a MacBook Pro couldn't compete with a desktop tower until Apple Silicon. And from a measurement standpoint, the AirPods Pro 2 and 3 still outperform the AirPods Max 2 at less than half the price, with pretty much the same H2 chip, better battery life, everything. They are insane values. And that is also true on the Android side, by the way. I mean, I love these PX7s, but it is hard to deny the absolutely killer performance of the new Samsung Galaxy Buds4 Pro and all of the quality of life features that come with them. They are the closest thing that I have used to an AirPods Pro alternative yet. They are really, really great. If I had $550 to spend, I wouldn't want to buy any over-ear Bluetooth headphone. I would just buy a pair of AirPods Pro 3, or frankly, 2, and spend the rest on a pair of Sennheiser HD650 and a cheap headphone amp. I mean, that combo gives you 2 for the price of 1, with better sound quality, better ANC, better comfort, better battery life, and in the case of those wired Sennys, cans that will last you for literal decades. Mine are over 20 years old, and they still sound fabulous. AirPods for when you're out in the world, and then open backs for when you just want to scratch the hi-fi itch at home. The AirPods Max 2 are a headphone that I struggle to recommend to basically anybody, unless you want, as we discussed, AirPods in an over-ear form factor. And if you do, then nothing else matters. But for the rest of us, there is a better pair of headphones that you probably already own, one that is always nearby, frankly, probably in your ears or your pocket as you watch this video. What do you think? Have the AirPods Pro rendered over-ears obsolete for you too? Or is there something about full-size headphones that you can't give up? Let me know in the comments down below. But most importantly, and as always, stay snazzy.